פתוח. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Reminder to record, please.
Just put it outside so it'll be far away.
You tell me when, oh. In the mornings, it doesn't. Okay, just now, I'll start in 1 minute. Or maybe the volume can. תודה רבה רבה for doing. Okay, can you hear me now? Perfect, it's good. Good evening, everyone. So the shiur today, we have a lot to cover. I'll try to cover it all. I'll tell you what we're going to talk about and what we are not going to talk about tonight. What we're going to talk about tonight are the preparations for Pesach, less about Pesach itself, including not the question of what to do when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat. We're going to discuss that. Rav Rimon, Be'ezrat Hashem, is going to give us a shiur next week, and he is going to discuss that matter. I'm also prepared to discuss it on another occasion, but not tonight, simply because there won't be time to bring that into the shiur as well. What I'm going to talk about is cleaning the home and koshering the kitchen, shopping for Pesach, which I will include the kitniot controversy. I don't know if it's a controversy, it's a minhag, but we'll discuss that as well. And a few words on mechirat chametz. So let's start with cleaning the home. First of all, it's very important to understand there is no need to go beyond and do spring cleaning for Pesach. If someone wants to do spring cleaning, it is fine, but don't blame Pesach for it. Don't say that it is Pesach that makes you work so hard. It's not. Basically, the home, you could clean regularly like you usually do. I mean, people who have relatively a clean house don't have to do more than that. The idea is that you don't have pieces of bread lying around that you care for, something that is big enough to take a bite of or something like that lying around. If you have those type of things lying around under the bed or the cabinet, then you have problems then cleaning for Pesach. So it's basically just sweeping the floor, sponge out, things like that is enough to do throughout the house. Where one should do and making sure that there is no chametz, that there is no bottle of whiskey hiding somewhere or anything like that. We'll get to soon. We'll see what happens if we forgot something somewhere. Well, I'll discuss that at the very end. But basically, cleaning is just making sure that there is nothing that I would care for on Pesach. Okay, when it comes to the kitchen and dining area, it's different because I'm not only concerned about having chametz, but I am concerned that there is chametz there that might find its way into my food, and then I might eat it on Pesach. There are two problems on Pesach. The one is we're not supposed to have chametz. The other one is we're not supposed to eat chametz. Having chametz is not a big problem. It's because if I have crumbs, it's not considered having chametz. Crumbs are nothing. So if they're floating somewhere in my home, small crumbs, we don't care about that. We're mevatel them. We don't care about them. That's fine. I care about big pieces of chametz. But when it comes to the kitchen, then even small crumbs can find their way into my food. Not even crumbs. Let's say, if I take a pan that was used for chametz, and now I use it for Pesach, then there is chametz stuck to the pan that now finds itself, that now my food is containing part of that. So that is a problem as well. So therefore, the kitchen has to be cleaned, spotless, and koshered. So how do we do that? So first of all, I want to give a few klalim, a few principles on koshering, that we understand the logic behind it, that when I explain what to do, immediately connected to the principles. So first of all, we learn from the Torah that there are utensils that absorb, clay cheres, earthware, clay pots, and the like, they absorb. And we can see it, it's easy to see, and over time they absorb a lot, and therefore they cannot be kosher, because they cannot be koshered. If it's used for chametz, it contains chametz within it. Whatever we do to it, it won't take out all the chametz that is absorbed in it. And we are concerned that when we cook chametz in it, it's going to take it out. Other utensils from metal, wood, stone, etc., then they also can maybe absorb a bit. Maybe food gets stuck to it, and it could really get stuck and in the corners, etc. So that's a problem. We have to get it out somehow, but it's possible to get out, or to the best, if we do so to the best of our ability, it doesn't, it's not, then it is considered clean enough that we may use it for Pesach, or if we're koshering it from non-kosher to kosher, the same principle. Now, halachically, and this is important to understand, once 24 hours had gone by from when a utensil was used for not kosher, and then it was used for kosher, even though it wasn't kosher, the food is okay. Why? Because after 24 hours, whatever food that was there is considered spoiled. It's not considered good flavor anymore, and therefore it doesn't make whatever I prepared not kosher. However, that will be very confusing, because if that were the situation, then we wouldn't have, let's say, milchik and fleishik pots at home. We would have just pots, and we would just be careful to not use them for the same in 24 hours. And then we come home and we take a pot, and I'm cooking my hot dogs in a pot, and comes in my wife and says, hey, just a minute, just a few minutes ago, I boiled milk in that same pot. Oh, I didn't know. So here I go. And so it might confuse us, and we might get it wrong. It might create a balagan. So the rabbis decided whatever was used for something, whatever it is, you cannot use it for something else before you koshered it. So if something is milky, it's only milky. If something is meat, it's only meat. If something is treif, it continues to be treif until you kosher it. But we have to understand, from the Torah, mideoraita, after 24 hours, you can use it. The rabbis say you cannot, you have to kosher it in any case, in order to not confuse between cases where 24 hours did go by and where 24 hours did not go by. Now, why is it important to know that it's the Rabbanan? Because in a case where a mistake was done, where I used something and I then find out, oh no, it wasn't meat, it was milk. Then if 24 hours had gone by since I used it the last time, it is okay, because the rabbis didn't trafe the food I did it there. They just say I shouldn't do it. But if I did it by mistake, it's okay. What if I did it on purpose? What if I say, look, 24 hours had gone by. Okay, I shouldn't do it, but I don't care. I'm doing it anyhow. There, the rabbis say the food becomes treif because you did it on purpose. So it's not treif to everyone, but it's treif to the person who did it on purpose and any of those that he meant to cook it for. Someone else can eat it because it's not really treif, but it's treif for them. Okay. And from here to Pesach. On Pesach, there is an opinion, and that's how the Ramah, that the Ashkenazim follow, Ramoshe Isserlish Paskins, and that is that there is no such thing as what we call noten tam nifga, meaning this 24-hour rule does not apply to Pesach. Meaning, even though 24 hours went by since it was chametz, since it was used for chametz, from the Torah, it is not allowed to be used on Pesach. And that is very important because if it's from the Torah, then it's much more stringent and we wouldn't have that leniency that we usually have. If I used a chametz pot on Pesach, then I can't say, oh, I didn't use it for 24 hours for chametz, it's fine. That would be between meat and milk, between treif and non-treif, but not between chametz and matzah. Okay. Now, what do we do? How do we have utensils, we want to kosher them. So just a few words on how to kosher. So first of all, this year, thank God, unlike last year, remember we were stuck at home. There was no koshering places of the Iriyah. This year, they did a tremendous thing. There is going to be a drive-in koshering. I think Naomi, two drive-in kosherings. I think Naomi, you put the details on the. Oh, you put the. Very good. So the details are on the Koah chat. You could find them there, and I think we'll send it out in an email as well. Where will be these hachsharot kelim? It's going to be a drive-in, so you can take whatever you need to kosher and do it there. But it's important to know what you can kosher and bring. So basically, when we kosher, we have two main types of koshering. We have hagala and we have libun. Now, each one of these also has its subtypes. There are a few types of hagala and there are a few types of libun, and I'm going to explain. What is hagala and what is libun? Hagala is dipping whatever it is that we're koshering in boiling water. Not hot water, but boiling water. When they're on the fire, literally boiling, that's when we dip it in, and that koshers it. What can be koshered there? I'll say in a minute. Libun is when we take something and literally burn it. We take a fire and put it to it until it literally glows red or begins to peel, or that if we take another metal and bang on it, then sparks will come out. Soon we'll see that there are exceptions, but that is basically libun. Libun will ruin most of our utensils today. So most of our kitchen utensils cannot go through libun because it will ruin them. So that means that hagala is almost the only way to kosher. Soon we'll see there are ways of libun that might work for us, but we'll see that in a moment. So we have libun, burning, and hagala, dipping. What is the principal difference? The principal difference is this. Hag'ala is an attempt to clean the utensils. When we use a pot, because we use it in a very hot environment, then the food sticks to it at some places. And we're not able to always clean it as much as well. If we clean it when it's very hot, then or when it's with hot water, then the hot water lessens the grip of the lichluch, of the filth or whatever food that we want to get rid of on the thing, takes it off. Chazal also speak about things that are absorbed in it, but most of our utensils do not absorb, but things definitely stick to them. When we do Hagala, then it of our ability, it goes away. It doesn't necessarily, not everything goes away, but the Torah told us that that is enough, and once you do that, it's the kosher, and that's fine. That is Hagala. What is Libun? Libun does not clean, Libun burns. What Libun does, whatever filth or whatever lichluch, whatever non-kosher thing that is on the utensil is turned into charcoal. Once it's turned into charcoal, it's not considered food anymore, and it's okay, right? Like with Shlefat Chametz, we burnt our Chametz, that's it, it's not Chametz anymore. So when we burn it on our things, that's it, it's now charcoal, that's it. Okay, now why do Libun? Why not do only Hagala? Because not everything can be done by Hagala. Things that we use with liquid, with water and the like, we can do Hagalatu. Things that we use only with dry things, we cannot do Hagalatu, we have to do Libun. Why is that? Because there is a great principle of Kevol'o kach polto. The way food, the way a utensil got filthy with certain food, that is the way to clean it. What does that mean? We can see it. When we boil pots that we use with water on the fire, it's easier to clean than trays that we put in the oven with dry food. The dry food sticks more. It is much more difficult to clean. So basically, dry food, when it comes to dry food, we want to burn it on it because we cannot always take everything out. With water, we are, or to a great extent we are, and that is considered enough, and that is why Hagala is enough. Okay. So therefore, it is important to know, when you take your utensils for Hagala, you must clean them spotless before Hagala. Because if there is still filth on them that will remain there after the Hagala, then they're not kosher. They have to be spotless clean. Now, what about, we have next to the handles, sometimes places where we can't really clean that well. If we do it with a lot of soap, the soap spoils the food, and that would be considered okay. So with a lot of soap, we clean it to the best of our ability, and then we take it to the Hagala, but it has to be spotless, and then it's okay. With Libun, we don't have to clean it before, with Libun Chamur. I'll soon explain why I call it Libun Chamur as opposed to Libun Kal that I'll explain. Libun Chamur is the Libun that I just described before, burning basically burning the utensil and with the food on it, because the Libun is not there to clean. The Libun is to burn the food. So whatever is there, it's burnt. Whatever is not clean was burnt away, and that's fine. Okay. Now, many of the modern metals, they don't, even on a very high fire, they won't get to that extent. So all those signs for when you bang on it, it takes out nitzotzot, sparks, etc. That might happen with cast iron, something of cast iron. It might happen with that, but not with our other utensils. So other utensils which may bear libun, not all of them can bear. So the poskim say that 400 degrees is considered libun. Okay. Now, there is a minority opinion, and I'm mentioning it. I'm mentioning it now because soon we'll see it is important. That in libun as well, you have kevolo kach polto, meaning if, let's say, you have an oven that doesn't reach 400 degrees, you want to kosher it. How are you going to kosher it? It reaches only 250. That's its maximum. So what do? So there is a minority opinion that you put it on 250 and that koshers it. It's kosher. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Sorry? No, you have to clean it. In that type of limun, you'll have to clean. And I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it later. Okay. Now, in Hagala, there are also types of Hagala. So I spoke about the normal Hagala when you take something and put it in hot water. Now, why would you have to do that? Because you use it that way. Let's say pots and pans pots. I'll discuss pans in a moment. Pots that you use with water on the fire. How do you kosher? Hagala, you dip them in boiling water. But what about things that you didn't use? You don't boil them on the fire. You never use them that way. So on those, it might be enough on those things to pour boiling water, which is 1 degree below in hot water. And soon we'll see what are the things that we may pour water on, etc. Okay. Now, what about let's talk about cutlery. Cutlery, we don't boil in water. We don't put them in a pot, right? So how should we kosher them? So it would seem that pouring hot water on them would be enough because they come into contact with hot things, but that are not on the fire. However, sometimes we might want to taste something, so we'll put a fork in the fire or in the pot or a spoon to taste from the soup or whatever. And since it is used sometimes in that manner, and we don't remember what cutlery we did use this way and what cutlery we didn't and who, so therefore we say generally we just dip it all in water just to be sure. Now that is a stringency. It's a stringency that Ashkenazim do lechatchila across the board, but it is a stringency because there is a discussion. When I take a utensil and I kosher it, to what degree do I kosher it? Let's say I have a pot that I usually boil it with water on the fire, but from time to time I might use it for doing a pot roast. So I put it in the oven with dry, not boiling it with something. So putting in the oven will require libun. Putting it on top would require hagala. So is it hagala or libun? So libun is more stringent. So the one opinion says, well, libun, because from time to time you use it with that. So it's filthy to that degree. There is an opinion that says, no, you go according to the majority use of whatever it is. And therefore, because you use it usually for boiling water, you'll use it just for that. Now, why is that? What is the logic behind it? It's you use it for something that's stuck to it as dry. So there is an explanation to it, but we won't get into it right now. But that is the discussion. We, especially Ashkenazim, we go according to the stringent thing, meaning if once we used it in the oven, we have to kosher it with libun. If we took a fork, put it in the in hot water, even though usually we eat only cold things with it. It has to do hagala, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now I want to now those were the principles. From understanding the principles, now we could run through the kitchen and see how we do it. What do we do to the counter? Okay, the working surfaces in the kitchen. First of all, we must clean them well and dry them. Then we pour water from a hot boiling kettle. So we boil a kettle and immediately pour it all over. Now, there are all types of countertops. Some of them are made of materials that there is no question you can kosher. Some of them are made of materials that there are different opinions whether they could be koshered or not. Let's say if it's stone, granite, could be kosher, not a problem. If it is stainless steel, could be koshered, no problem. There are newer materials that are also almost like steel or a type of metal with stone. It could be kosher. But then plastic materials, plastic-like materials, according to most opinions, can be koshered. According to some, cannot be koshered. What we call today, most of the shaish, most of the stone surfaces are made of pieces of stone glued together. And according to many opinions, that is like earthware, like clay, and therefore it cannot be kosher. According to many, it could be kosher. According to some, it could be kosher. Now, therefore, me'ikaradin, if someone wants to, they could do one or two. Either pour hot water or cover, but it is better to do both. It is better to do both. Why do both? Most covers might move and then something might go on it and it might be something hot. So even if you covered, it's better to be safe and kosher before. Even if you koshered, it is better to cover because A, it might be of materials that cannot be koshered. B, it could be that you that koshering with pouring water is not enough, and I'll explain why. There are counters which are delicate, and therefore we will never put a hot directly on the counter. Many of us have such counters at home, but there are counters, most of stone counters, etc. You could put a hot thing directly on the counter, and sometimes you do, or even if you don't, it could slip. It could have slipped more than once from whatever mat you put it on onto the counter. And what happens then is I have a hot boiling pot that might have many times, let's say it has a piece of pasta stuck at the bottom of it, it's hot boiling and it sticks to the counter. No water there necessarily, or not enough to be considered boiling. And therefore it is in a dry fashion, it might require something like libun, not libun because it's not in the oven, but something like libun. What is something like libun? So here, especially Ashkenazi poskim require, when I say poskim, I'm talking about, I'm going hundreds of years back, they require pouring hot boiling water on top of a stone that we just took out from the oven, a very hot stone that the water will be boiling when it's on the counter, either a stone or a piece of metal. Now, in our kitchens today, they're too delicate to bear these. They will start putting stones in the oven, taking it out, burning ourselves, burning everything else. It's a balagan. We can't really do it. So therefore, we only pour water. But since we only pour water without that glowing stone, it is better to cover the counters as well. If you remember, last year I said we don't have to necessarily cover. That's because where we were standing with the corona, what we this year I think we know more about how we are infected, and I think the situation is better. So I think we should we should try and cover as well. So just to summarize, clean the counters, the work surfaces, pour hot water over it, and then from a kettle immediately after boiling, and then dry and cover. If you only pour water or only cover, that's also okay, but it's preferable to do both. Okay.
Well, Chanan, just
The
a very
sink.
quick question. Can I ask a quick question? Can
Sure.
you address the question of the 24-hour wait before koshering counters, please?
Yes, okay. So it's important to wait 24 hours, but it doesn't matter when you wait them, whether before or after koshering. Meaning before you use it for chametz, since you use it for chametz and until you use it for matzah, then it's good that 24 hours would go by. Why? Because as we said before, what I said before about the 24 hours, it's not necessary because when you kosher it, then you don't need to wait 24 hours. But it is a good stringency, just in case. So you wait 24 hours, maybe you didn't kosher it well, maybe the koshering, as I said before, it's not the ideal koshering, so wait 24 hours. But the 24 hours doesn't matter whether it's before or after or even during. Okay? You have to have 24 hours and you have to do the koshering, but the koshering you do at the beginning of the 24 hours, in the middle of the 24 hours, or at the end. It doesn't matter. As long as there are 24 hours between your use of chametz and your use of matzah. Okay? Okay. Now, the sink. The sink, like the counter, we dry well and make sure it's dried and up. We first clean it. We clean it to the best of our ability, and then we dry it, and then we pour hot water the same way. However, many of the sinks are made out of what we call chalcina. Chalcina, according to many, is like clay cheres that cannot be koshered. It's like clay, like earthware that cannot be koshered. So what do we do? So the best thing is to take their special bowls that you could buy. Even you could buy them to a certain size that they'll fit exactly in the sink, or they don't, and then it's not so comfortable. But what can you do? Plastic things that fit in the sink, just in case. Now, if you have a stainless steel sink or other kosherable materials, then you could definitely kosher the sink by pouring hot boiling water all over. Now, this is very important to understand, not to understand, a practical thing. Sometimes pouring hot water is difficult, especially in sinks where the walls are vertical. I always get confused between vertical and horizontal. Are vertical, so pouring water and the water goes down, and by the time it gets down, it cools off. So it's not exactly. So this is something I heard from Rabbi Willig in the United States, a practical solution of how to do it. You take the Shabbat urn, you boil it, and then you empty the Shabbat urn into the sink. And then it basically, you plug the sink and empty the Shabbat urn. It comes nearly to the top. And then what you do, you have a small pot boiling with some water on the fire. You take that pot, because whatever you put in the water, you want it to be hot as well. If you put something cold in the water, you cooled it. So you take that and you press a bit into the water and make it come to the height of the top. And that way make make it do that way. Okay, David asked if you have to cover marble tops. So I think it is better to cover even marble tops. Why? Because even though it's kosherable material, no doubt, however, when you as I said before, it might require a glowing stone, and we don't do it with it, and therefore it is better to cover it. Let's see, another question.
Rabbi,
When do you go to?
if you pour water from the Shabbos kettle into the sink, it's going to
Oh, no,
splash
no,
out
no,
the
no,
side,
yes, yeah.
and you're gonna end up
No,
in
no, no, no.
casualty.
Open the, make it pour slowly from the.
Yeah, and then it'll be as
But
cold.
don't pour it
as
like
the
this.
kettle. Oh, but isn't it just going to be
Sorry?
the same? By the time it comes out of the Shabbos kettle and it falls down the side.
Not necessarily, no, if you do it, you place it to begin with, okay, so you place it to begin with the, yes, you place it to begin with the faucet on the, above the sink.
Right.
And when it's still on, you turn the faucet, you turn the tab. Oh, in the UK, you don't say faucet, you say tap. You open the tab of the kettle, and you have it dry. So yeah, so to begin with, it will start cooling, but then slowly it will build its heat to the top, and that's hot enough.
Then you leave the plug in the sink, the whatever they call that in American.
No, not in the sink.
What am I filling?
On the side of the sink, you put kettle.
Yes.
You put the kettle on the side of the sink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the tab above the sink, you open it.
Yes.
The water slowly you plug the sink. The water is going into the sink, building up,
yes.
Until it gets nearly to the end. Then you close it. Then you take that small pot.
The normal kettle. Pour it in till it splashes over the side a little bit.
I either pour it or no. What you have a small pot. You don't pour the water in. With the pot, you hold the pot with the handle, and you gently press it into the water until the water goes up to the top of the sink.
Oh, displacement theory. Okay, but you have to then let the water cool down dramatically before you put your hand into the sink to pull out the plug. I don't want anyone in the community ending up in hospital. It will be rather unfortunate.
Don't put your hand in hot water. Yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Emma. Okay. If that is too complicated, you could pour the water from the kettle onto the sink that way. That's okay as well. I just thought that would be as complicated as it is. It is practically works. Okay. Okay.
But
now
one question, just to clarify. But if your sink cannot be kosher, then you don't do any of that. If you have the first type of sink that you talked about, then you don't do that.
You're right. You don't have to do that. Yes. Unless if your house is as messy as mine. In my house, I do kosher it, and I'll tell you why. Even though it's a chalsina thing, because of the next thing that I'm about to say. There are opinions that say that chalsina. How do you say chalsina in English? No, it's not exactly porcelain, but it's okay. It's whatever the sinks are made out of. Those that stone earthware clay thing, because it's glazed. It is not like cheres, then you could kosher it. There are such opinions. Okay, now what happens if my bowl that I put in that sink doesn't fit exactly the thing, and sometimes things do fall out into the sink, and I used it with hot water, some hot water touched it, and it was in the sink, then b'di'eved, post facto, it will be okay if I koshered the sink before. So that's why practically it's a good thing to kosher, but you're right, you don't have to. You don't have to, especially if whatever plastic thing you put in it fits the entire thing, then definitely that's not a problem. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the stove. If you have a gas stove, then that's the easiest.
Sorry,
You
just
clean
very
it
quickly
well.
before the stove. Can I just on the sink? Is it the same rule on 24 hours like the countertops? Okay.
Yes, yes. Everything we kosher, then just in case we wait 24 hours between the use of chametz and the use of Pesach. It's usually so, because usually we clean and kosher. Well, we clean from chametz way before we start the cooking, but yes. Okay. Stoves, we put, we clean well. After cleaning, if it's gas, then basically to kosher the top of the gas, it's very easy. During the year, we always do that, right? We use milk after meat all the time. Why? Because it burns itself, so you don't need to really kosher it. However, in order to be extra careful, what we do, we put pots on the hubs and we light them. Why do we put pots? Because when we don't have the pots, then only the small area where the fire is gets hot. When the pot goes on, then the fire and the heat expand to the entire surface and the area, and that does a better job. Now, there is a stringency here. It's not absolutely required, but it's a good stringency. Some do cover with foil the chatzuva. How do you say chatzuva? The metals that you put the pot on. Someone wants to write to me how you say it, or
Grate?
The racks, Rabbi.
Grate.
The rack, the pot holders, the racks.
The grate. Yes, thank you. Sorry? Yes, so some do cover it. Why? Because the fire doesn't reach everything. And therefore not everything goes through libun. Yes, the fire, basically what it is doing is libun. And therefore, and I might get it not touching exactly where it was, and it touched the pot. So therefore they cover it. It's not required, but if someone wants to be stringent, you can. What you don't have to cover is the bottom, the parts of the stove that do not touch the pot. There is no need to put on some cover with foil, the bottom, the base. You don't need to cover it, because anyhow, if something falls there, even during the year, it's straight, because you have meat falling there, milk falling there. So usually you don't eat what falls there, especially if 24 hours didn't go by between one and the next. So you don't really need to cover it, but you could if you want to, but there is no need. Okay. Electric.
Excuse me, one quick question. The part that you said about putting a pot, are you using a chametz pot or a Pesach pot? Maybe that's a stupid question. When you said about you should put a pot on it.
Right, all koshering could be done either with chametz pot or Pesach pots. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Okay. Electric hubs. Now, the old electric hubs are not a problem. You basically kosher them the same way. You put them on the highest, and that's that. But no one, I see people with them today. Most people have those that are covered with glass. That is problematic. According to many poskim, and I'll say that because that is what is done by many today, we hold that you could kosher it. You clean it to the best of your ability, you turn it up onto the highest, leave it so for half an hour, and that's kosher. But there are those who hold, many Ashkenazim hold, that even clear glass cannot be koshered because it's earthenware, and therefore it falls under the category of earthenware like cheres, and it cannot be koshered. And if so, then those stoves cannot be koshered. And if someone wants to be stringent and buy another stove for Pesach, there is room for doing so. But as I said, you could definitely rely on the opinions that say that you can kosher, especially glass that could be heated to such an extent on the top of the stove, then that is definitely libun chamul. And even earthenware, according to the Gemara, if you put it in a furnace, then it would be kosher. Then this might be seen to an extent as a furnace, and maybe it is kosher. So you could, if you want, you could rely on those opinions. Induction. There are silicone covers that you could get today to cover them, and that's the best thing. So you clean them well, and it's a silicone thing that covers the whole thing, and it still works. It's like a miracle. How does the heat go through it? But it still does, and it works. It's the best thing. The oven.
I have a question. How long, if you have a gas stove, how long do you have to leave it on the pots? The fire.
So you could, I would say, every year I'm stumped by that question. I have to think. I would say 15 minutes is definitely enough, maybe even 10 minutes, but just 15 to be sure. If all the fires are on at the same time, then it creates such a heat that I would say 10 minutes is enough. Okay. The stove. Clean it well, turn it on the highest heat, and until either the thermostat goes off, then you know that it reached the highest. You turn it on high, and then when the thermostat turns off, you know it reached that heat. If you're not sure when the thermostat turns off, then just to be safe, leave it on for 40 minutes or so. That is enough for koshering the oven. Now, even though we're not talking about libun chamul, I said before, libun chamul is 400 degrees or more, and this would be also have to kosher ovens that even don't reach that. Now, why is that okay? Because the food doesn't touch the oven itself. It's in the pot, it's in the pan. So therefore, in order to clean the oven itself, that's for the oven itself, that's enough. However, pans cannot be koshered. Why they cannot be koshered? Because they require libun chamul. Libun chamul will ruin them. And because it will ruin them, then even if someone wants to do so, we tell him not to do so because he might not do it, he or she might not do it correctly because they would be careful not to ruin it. So therefore, trays, the oven trays cannot be koshered. The racks should be left in the oven when we turn it on to the highest, and then cover it with foil for Pesach, that the pots won't be directly on the rack, but on foil. Now, self-cleaning ovens are the best. You don't have to. Self-cleaning ovens are usually, I think they reach 500 degrees, which is much more than 400, and they basically turn all the filth into ashes. You don't have to clean it before. You don't even have to clean it after, but because it basically burns everything out. But if you want, you could clean it. So you basically put it on self-cleaning, and that's it. It's kosher. Most ovens today with self-cleaning, the instructions are to not leave the trays in. So therefore, the trays cannot be koshered even with that. There are some brands that allow you, that have trays that can remain in the oven even when you do the self-cleaning. Those trays can be koshered because 400 degrees is considered libun chamul, so 400 degrees or more. I'm sorry? Celsius, yes. Celsius, yes. 400 Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Yes, that is important for all those that think in Fahrenheit. Okay. Okay. The hot plate for Shabbat is really problematic to kasher. It's better to buy to have one especially for Pesach. If someone cannot have one for whatever reason, then clean it well and cover with foil. Okay, mixer and blender. Okay, mixer and blender is difficult but possible to kasher. Clean well, and those parts of the machine that touch the food have to be kashered. They have to be kashered with hagala and hot boiling water. If they are used to make dough, then according to Ashkenazim, they need libun kal. That means to say to put in the fire, not to the extent that I said before, but to some extent. That might ruin it, and therefore it is better to not kasher if it's something that is used to make dough. Anything else? Sorry? Yes, you could buy the pieces or something like that, no problem. The machine itself has to be cleaned very well. Now, some machines, now there are the vents from where air comes out. Now, sometimes flour gets in there, and when you turn it out, flour comes out from the vents. Now, especially with mixers where the vent is above the food, let's say the hand mixers or something like that, they have vents above the food, then that is a problem. Then you could carefully take it apart before Pesach and brush the inside and put it together. If you want, that is a good thing to do. Okay. Microwaves. Yes, how did you know? Microwaves, you clean it well. Just a minute. You clean it well, and then you wait 24 hours. Now here, unlike before, you wait the 24 hours before the kashering. There is a reason for it, but I have no time to explain. Unlike with all the others where the 24 hours doesn't matter, here it does. So you clean it well, then wait 24 hours, then put in a bowl with hot water and make it steam for a few minutes. Once it's steamed, then that basically kashers it. You wipe it off, and that's it. Then you cover the plate that goes round. You cover with what do you call it? Nylon nitzmad, saran wrap, or anything else that would cover it. You could put another plate on top of it, but saran wrap is the best way, and that you do. Dishwasher, you clean the mesanenet, the drain, the filter. You clean very well because that is filled with whatever food residue that is still there. You make sure there's it's clean, and then you turn it on with soap on the highest. The trays, the racks themselves, if you can take them apart and bring them to the tevilah, that they'll dip them and do agah, that's the best. If you cannot do it, sometimes it's difficult to take it apart or something like that, you can carefully, very carefully, pour with your kettle hot water all over it. If that is too difficult, then you can rely on those that say that you just put it on the highest thing, and that kashers the racks as well. There are those that are stringent and do not kasher dishwashers as well, dishwashers at all. There is room for that stringency if someone wants to take it upon themselves. So you could kasher, but there are those who don't. Okay, the table, both in the kitchen, dining room tables on which we prepare food and eat, then should be, we clean them and cover. The best thing is to have a sort of a plastic cover like this. If you see this, like, you know, those plastic covers, and on top of that, the regular tablecloth. That's the best thing. Tablecloths, we basically put it in the washing machine and wash, and that's you don't have to do them if they were washed. I mean, if you use them for chametz, then you have to make sure they were washed before you use them for Pesach. Okay, cabinets, etc. We basically just make sure that they are clean. Once they're clean, they're clean. It used to be that rabbis said to cover it with some paper or something like that, but that is when the cabinets were wood and they had splinters coming out and cracks all over, and it was very difficult to get all crumbs. But today, with the surfaces are clean enough, you just clean it, and that's fine. The same goes for the fridge. The same goes for the freezer. Okay. Okay, we don't have a lot of time, so the two next things I'm going to run through. What needs and what doesn't need to be kosher for Pesach. Okay, there is an interesting thing about milk, believe it or not. Milk, if it was milked on Pesach, then it might be problematic if the cow ate chametz. However, any milk you buy from Tnuva makes sure to buy its milk only from dairies that feed their cows with non-chametz on Pesach. Now, eggs are problematic because eggs, you don't know where they come from. Some eggs that were laid on Pesach, if the chickens ate chametz, they are problematic. Not because the eggs are chametz, not because of that. I won't get into the halachic thing, but it is a problem. So therefore, eggs, if you should be bought before Pesach. Don't buy eggs on Pesach. Buy all your Pesach eggs before Pesach. Medicine. Medicine which doesn't taste good does not need to be kosher for Pesach. So it doesn't. You don't have to look for it on the list. If it doesn't taste good, it's bitter. Even if it does contain chametz, it is not food. You don't want the chametz is there just to bind the thing together. And since it is not food, it is not considered chametz. Chametz is considered chametz only when it's food, not when it's not food. So therefore, if it's in medicine that doesn't taste good, doesn't need any kashrut for Pesach. If you have medicine that does taste good, so there, even though it's medicine, because you like the taste, then the taste is considered food, and therefore it needs to be you want to make sure it's on the list. Soaps and the like do not require a kashrut for Pesach. Cleaning detergents, etc., do not require a kashrut for Pesach. There is a stringency regarding cosmetics, perfume, deodorant, lotions, to make sure that they are kosher for Pesach. It is a stringency with lipstick as well. It is a stringency. It is not required, even with lipstick that you put very close to your mouth, because it's not food. Yeah, it's not. So there is a concept of sicha keshtia, that anointing is like eating, but since this is not food, then many say it's not. It doesn't matter even if it has chametz. Now, since it is so far, first of all, we don't know when we use something whether there is chametz in it or not, and even if it does, it might be okay. So therefore, it's a stringency. There are people who are stringent and don't use deodorant, lotions, lipstick, etc., if they're not kosher for Pesach, but it's just a stringency. You could do so if you want, you don't have to. When you okay. going shopping. Today you go shopping, everything is kosher Pesach, wonderful. But 70% or 80% of the things say le'ochlei kitniot bilvad. What to do? People are very uncomfortable with the kitniot business. And every year people ask me, can we have this? Why not? Can we have kitniot? What about kitniot? So first of all, the minhag of kitniot started 700, maybe 800 years ago, depending where. It started in a few places, and then we find it in another few places, mainly in Western Europe, the Ashkenazim. Then later on, we find a few places that also Sfadim kept some kitniot. We hear that in some places they didn't eat rice, in some places they didn't eat hummus, in some places they didn't eat other things. In Iraq and Tunis and Morocco, not everyone ate everything. Now, these minhagim, where did they come from? So in the very early days, we're just reported that they were indeed eaten, but there is no reason given. Later generations tried to find what are the reasons, why don't we eat them? And they came up with a few reasons. I'll give them now, but there are other reasons as well. I'll give the main ones. Now, all these reasons, okay, I'll give them. The one is ma'aseh k'deira, meaning things that we do dishes with that are boiled and then are served, then we don't eat. Why? Because people might then do so with grain as well. People don't understand the difference between, they did a pot of beans, the next day they'll do a pot of barley, not understanding that barley is not beans. And actually, I heard from Rav Eliezer Melamed of a case of Chozrim B'Tshuva that he knew of that did exactly that on Pesach. They said we're not Ashkenazim, we're Sfaradim, so we could have kitniot, and they served barley, not realizing that barley is not kitniot, it's grain. So since people not always realize and the minhagim are not so clear, then they said anything that we do a dish that looks like grain, we don't have. Okay, that's one difference, one reason. Another reason is things that we use to do, that are used to do flour from, and that the flour, you can't really tell the difference between the types of flour. So let's say you're using flour, you think you're using bean flour or whatever other things. Cornstarch doesn't really look, let's say fine cornstarch, think it's, and then no, it either is not cornstarch at all, or it contains some ordinary wheat flour. So because of that, we don't use anything that we do flour from. Potatoes are an exception. But you can see potato starch is very different to any other flour. It's very distinct. You can see it's potato starch. A third reason, and that is probably the strongest one, is that grains and kitniot get mixed up. They're stored in the same warehouses, they're in the same sacks, in the same store, they're opened and next to each other, and one falls next. It's very, very common to find one thing in the other, and therefore, on Pesach, there is no such thing as bitul berov. If we have a pot of beans with one grain of barley or wheat, then the whole pot is chametz and should be thrown away. And we might not even know that that grain is there, but it's so likely that it's there that the Ashkenazim said, you know, let's not eat anything which might have that one grain of barley. And it's very difficult to find in a pile of beans one barley, and therefore they don't eat it. It is not only that, but also sometimes they're grown in the same fields, and when you harvest beans, then there might be, because the last season you change in order to preserve the minerals in the earth, you change from one crop to the other. So it could be that last year you had grain and this year you had beans, and now you're harvesting the beans, but you have some leftover grains growing there, and it just came out with it. So therefore, because of storing, harvesting, etc., then we don't have all these things that may mix together. We don't have them. Now, I think all these reasons apply today as well. And in general, it is very important to keep minhagim. Basically, minhagim are what make it brings the halacha home, so to speak. Meaning it brings a sort of gavat yechida. How do you say gavat yechida? Proud of that. Unit pride, yes. Let's say in the army, you have different units, and every unit wants to be special. So it's we do it this way, we do it that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Many people think that, oh, we have to be one nation, we have to do everything the same. It's not true. There were always shvatim in Am Yisrael, and there were always different communities, different families, and people have traditions, people have community traditions, and that is fine. And I think that is an excellent way of also having our children connect with their roots, because we're not only Jews, we're Jews that have each family has its particular history. Each community has its particular history. And it's through that particular history that we connect to the nation. It's not one big mishmash that we want to be. We want our individuality as individuals, as families, and as communities to shine, and through that, be part of Am Yisrael. And I think it's very important. It's also, children get confused, and also in some things that previous generations kept are important, some things are not kept. There's an amazing statement by Rav Gaon years ago. Rav Gaon was over 1,000 years ago, one of the Geonim in Bavel. He was asked, why do we do something against what it says in the Gemara? So he says, just a minute. Who told you that you have to do what is in the Gemara? So he says, well, my father, previous generations. He said, exactly. Our initial commitment is to the minhagim. And that initial commitment brings about our larger commitment to halacha. But the initial commitment is to what our mothers told us, what our fathers told us, and through that we learn about our way of life. So I think minhagim are very, very important, and we don't want to just dismiss minhagim just like that. Now, today, and it's a new thing, all of a sudden people say, no, if something just contains some kitniyot, not a lot of kitniyot, then it might be okay. It's batel rov if it's more than 50%. All right. So the derivative it's not so simple. I'll explain in a moment what that means. So therefore, I think it is important to keep kitniyot the way they were kept before. Now, yotzei kitniyot, there is a mistake. It's a mistake that people think that if it's not the kitniyot itself, it's a product that is made from it, it's okay. No, there is no such thing. What there is a question. If I made something from kitniyot, that if it were grain, it would have been kosher for Pesach. So let's say I took flour of kitniyot and I baked it in such a way that if it was grain, it would be matzah and it would be kosher for Pesach. And is it kosher for Pesach? Then there are those that say kitniyot that are just a minhag cannot be worse than grain. If it was grain, it wouldn't be kosher. It would have been kosher for Pesach. Then if it's kitniyot, of course, it's kosher for Pesach. That's the one opinion. And therefore, Rav Kook, here in Eretz Yisrael, there was a great controversy. One of the first controversies that Rav Kook was involved with was the shemen sumsumin. It was sesame oil, sesame kitniyot, but it was done in such a way that the sesame does not become, if it were grain, it wouldn't become chametz. So it became oil with such a process that if it was grain that you would extract oil from in the same process, the oil wouldn't be chametz. So Rav Kook said, then the oil cannot be chametz, because if it were grain, it wouldn't chametz. Then, of course, if it's kitniyot, it's not chametz. That's what Rav Kook said. Many hold like that. Some do not. Some do not. The Shoel Umeshiv, for instance, says no. Why not? He says, because everyone knows that matzah is not chametz. Everyone knows that. So they won't get confused. They see something and they're told this is matzah. Yeah, I know matzah is not chametz, but they see oil. They know, let's say, soy oil is kitniot for them. So they say, okay, soy oil I know is usually not good, but this oil was made in such a way that it's kosher Pesach. What do you mean by it? They get confused? With matzah, they know there is a way to do it, but with kitniot there is not. So there is a machloket. And here, if someone wants to do like Rav Kook, they can do. If someone wants to do like anyone else, they can do. But I don't think you could find products today that are made from kitniot in such a way that you know that they're kosher for Pesach. I don't think people bother, because those who make it with kitniot basically rely on the minha, on those that eat kitniot regularly, and they won't bother to make it in such a way that if it was grain, it wouldn't become chametz. But if someone knows, they may use it that way. Now, what is kitniot and what is not? There are different minhagim. For instance, peanuts. In Lithuania, peanuts was not considered kitniot. In Poland, it was. So here, people should go according to the minhag of their family. That is exactly what sunflower oil is. Another good example. In some places, it's not considered kitniot. In some places, it is. So whatever the minhag of your family is, follow that. Don't be embarrassed to say, everyone does it this way, everyone does it that way. This is the place where people can follow actually what they did at home, what their parents did, what their grandparents did. That's the good thing. So I think if we're not sure about things, then if it's ochle kitniot, let's treat it as ochle kitniot, and that's it. If we know we come from a place where this was not kitniot, then fine. If not, then let's treat it like kitniot. The last thing is liftit, canola.
May I ask a question about kitniot? Okay, so in regard to, it's not black and white. There's always this changeover time period, and especially this year with Shabbat being Erev Pesach. Can you use those kitniot products? Can you take your Pesach spoon and put it in the kitniot yogurt? Till Pesach.
Yes.
Till Pesach. Can you use the kitniot product on your Pesach dishes and your Pesach pots?
Yes. The answer is yes, because kitniot is not chametz. It's a minhag, and therefore it doesn't make your pots chametz or anything like that. You could do it. Just make sure, don't eat it after sof zman achilat matzah, achilat chametz. Meaning after, I think it's 10. I think it's about 10 in the morning. Then once you cannot eat, so for the night, or even early in the morning, it's still eat kitniot, no problem. And you can make it in your Pesach pots, that's fine. Okay. Liftit, yes. I think we don't have to worry about liftit and treat it as kitniot. The reason is because it is not really, sorry? Yes, lecithin is made out of it, and canola oil, all of those things we don't have to worry about. They're not, according to my opinion, we don't have to count them as kitniot, because even though it's seeds, and therefore it might be like the other things, they're not stored with grain, they're not grown with grain, they're never eaten just like that. They're not used for food other than to make oil. And therefore, I think we could use them. That's not a problem. If someone wants to be stringent, there are those that are stringent with it. That's fine. But I think if something says lo'chlei liftit, we could be lenient with that. Quinoa, there are those that say it's okay. I think it's problematic because all of those reasons that we said, or not all, some of those reasons that we said before about storing, about about making it in a pot, etc., do apply to quinoa as well. So I think it might be problematic as well. But there are those who say it's okay. So you can decide what you follow. Now, all that being said, in individual cases, if there are cases of celiac where no one can eat anything or things like that, then there is room for leniency. I don't want you to, you don't have to go rosh bakir, as we say, but in general, we should keep kitniot. The bottom line is, I think we should follow whatever it says. If it says it's kitniot, it's kitniot. If it doesn't, if it says, then it's fine. Our ancestors did well. I mean, the Ashkenazis amongst us, our ancestors did well without kitniot. I think we could do without it. Most of us. Others, as I said, there are individual cases where it's required, and then there's room for leniency. Okay, I'll just say a few words about mechirat. Sure.
What about when you see a bag of almonds, and it says contents 100% almonds, lochle kitniot? Isn't that kastach? Isn't that like putting dry clean on a cotton t-shirt?
Yeah, so then you know it's okay. As I said before, because maybe someone considers it kitniot, but you don't, so that's fine. Or as I said, it falls under the category, as I said before, with peanuts, etc., where they'll say things are kitniot. That's fine. You don't.
Almonds are
exactly.
Never
yes, but there they would put it just because maybe it touched. That's okay. Things. Obvious things like that, you could, yes, you could understand. Yes, you should use your head. Yes.
Take on that point that Emma just made, Rav Chanan. I mean, the same thing with the almonds applies to Diet Coke and mayonnaise and yogurt, not necessarily.
Why? Do you know what they contain? I don't know what they contain.
Yeah, but because they're just writing on there, they're just writing.
But maybe it contains kitniot.
But if you look at the ingredients, it doesn't actually say that it contains anything that is kitniot. You look at it. I mean, what's kitniot? Soya, rice, beans. But lecithin or preservatives or whatever it is that might have had some derivative or something. I mean, Diet Coke is the classic. I mean, Diet Coke, they say that there are some chemicals maybe in there that might have been derived from something and there are some people that are machmir and say lochle kitniot, and they look at the hechsher and it says lochle kitniot bilvad, but it's Diet Coke.
Yes, I remember hearing something about Diet Coke, but I don't remember exactly what it was. It could be that there are a few items out there that are like that. If you know that's fine, then you do according to what you know. I remember hearing something about Diet Coke, that it might be okay. There is no kitniot in there, but I don't remember exactly. But you might be right.
Apparently Coke Zero has 0 kitniot.
Very good. Okay, that very well may be. I wouldn't, however, I wouldn't act on rumors. I would try and find out, and if that's true, then that's wonderful. Okay, we don't have time at all. We're way over the time. So I'll just end with a few words on mechirat chametz. It is important to know mechirat chametz works. There are those that are careful not to sell chametz gamur. However, if we need to, or even if we don't, if whoever wants to, mechirat chametz works. If you have a good bottle of tea or anything else, you could sell it. It's good to have at least open things or things that you won't eat after Pesach. Then, of course, burn it, do mitzvat bi'ur chametz, but anything else you could sell without no de'aga. However, no, not however. When someone asked me today, do you have to wait until Pesach to sell, or do you sell it now? You don't sell the chametz. you appoint someone to be your proxy to sell your chametz, meaning when you go to, whether it's through Tzohar, through the Rabbanut, or through any other rabbi that you do it, online or in person, it doesn't matter. It all works because you could appoint a proxy online, you could appoint them in any other way, over the phone. You appoint whoever you sent the form to as your proxy to sell your chametz. And they, on Erev Pesach, sell the chametz on your behalf, and they do it according to all the halachot, the selling and everything. And on Pesach and beyond, your chametz belongs to the non-Jew. Now, the way it is done, we don't have time. I wanted to go through the whole history, but we don't have time. I'll just tell you this. The way it works is simply to sell the chametz to the non-Jew, that he could do business with it. He could, but what if he won't be able to do business with it? Then you give him the possibility to sell it back to you after Pesach. Most likely he will sell it back to you, but even if he doesn't, who cares? He'll pay you for it if he takes it. So that's fine. You do it belev shalem, it is a sale, it's a mechira, and everything is okay. Whoever is leaving their home and going overseas for Pesach, then they should do mechirat chametz, because it is very likely that they left things at home. Then they'll come back, and all the food that they left home, all of a sudden they cannot eat. It's chametz shava alav Pesach, because they did bitul chametz, but the bitul chametz doesn't work, because the bitul chametz is only if you took that whiskey and poured it away. If you don't want to pour it away, you also want to drink it, then that wasn't a bitul. Then you have to. Then it's good. It's important that they sell their chametz. They do bdikat chametz the night before they leave. They do bdikat chametz without a bracha. Where do they do bdikat chametz? If they want, they could do bdikat chametz in the whole house, but they don't have to, because if they sell the chametz, they could basically sell the whole house, but they don't want to sell the whole house. They want to do some of the bdikat chametz. So pick one room that is not a problem, that you know is more or less clean. Do bdikat chametz in that room without a bracha. You did the mitzvah, and then the rest you sell, and that's wonderful. Yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say today. I have no other, that was what I wanted to cover today. So I wish us all Chag Pesach, Kasher v'Sameach, and any questions, you could either ask who wants to stay and ask questions, or you could write to me, WhatsApp, email, call me. I like calls, because then I could, I don't always answer. If I'm busy, I won't answer, but feel free to call. Then we could discuss the question and explain. Chofshi. Any questions? I'm prepared to answer.
Thank you very much. Is Rav Rimon going to
pleasure? Thank you, Emma.
What is the earliest time we can start the Seder next week for those of us who have a large age range of people?
I couldn't hear. What
is the earliest time we can start the Seder on Motzei Shabbat? Because they've changed to summertime, and if one has babies and elderly mummies, is there an earliest time, or has it got to be?
That's always a problem. Yeah. The Seder has to start at Seta Kochavim. At really exceptional cases, there might be some leniency, but that won't really help that much. We're talking about not a long time, but it's a good thing you could daven. You don't have to wait until Motzei Shabbat to daven Ma'ariv. You could daven Ma'ariv before Motzei Shabbat. I don't know how the shul does it usually when it's like this. Do you remember? But we'll talk to the Gabaim. Sorry?
I can't remember last week. You're asking me to remember 10 years ago.
20 years ago, I think Pesach was on Shabbat. Oh, 13 years ago, yes. So, and also 20 years ago, I think. Yeah, so 13 years ago. So daven before and then start your Seder like right on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think when this happened last, we had a government that was sensible enough to start Sha'on Kayetz after Leil HaSeder. But they don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. But we could decide to ignore the hour and to.
Why can't the shuls? Why can't the shuls just decide not to change the clock till Sunday night?
Oh my God!
United Kingdom, Britain isn't changing. Europe isn't changing until Sunday night.
8:30. You call it 7:30.
It would make a big difference.
Yes.
That's
they had that 1 year in America.
Is on the same hour for a very long time now.
They had that 1 year in America. I don't remember exactly how it fell out, but it was at the beginning of the year in the fall when it was a Motzei Shabbat that was like going into the second day of Chag. And so all the kehillah, all the shuls stayed on the old time and didn't change till Motzei Chag. So they did that 1 year in America.
In Mea Shearim, because they don't recognize the state of Israel, they stay on winter time throughout the year. They don't, because they don't change the clock according to on the hymn of the hymn of the government. Yes.
Well, maybe Rabbi, you can declare this year that Bakoa is not changing until Sunday night. That would be really nice and very helpful.
We'll see. We can talk to the Gavaim, see what they say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Any more questions? Hila Sanders, I see, has asked before about cumin mustard. They are considered kitniot. Ashkenazim don't eat those spices.
Rabbi, I have one question. Sorry, I don't know if you addressed this beforehand. What about kumkums that are only used for water? Nothing else ever goes in it besides for water.
Yes, I didn't say how to. So just in case kasher it, it's very easy. Basically, fill it to the top, and then pour the water, and that's it. Clean it well, obviously, before.
Right, obviously the outside, right.
And at you could hold it sideways and then pour hot water from another pot or kettle on its. You could hand it sideways and on its cover, just to kasher the cover that way. But that's for extra
even
care.
If it's plastic, even if the outside is like a hard plastic.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. Okay, so good evening. Thank you very much. A coffee maker. Yes, a coffee maker is very easy to kasher. Coffee is not chametz. Basically, all it needs is a good clean. Then, just in case, have it run once just to feel good about it and clean it, and that's fine. If it has a steamer that, like, the steamer that goes out and steams the milk, then do it once with water just to clean it all around, because sometimes, just in case, if there was chametz there or if there is chametz there, and that's fine. Yeah, they're 100% coffee. They're all. Oh, they even have extra. But even those who don't, even though coffee is coffee, it's not. Sorry. Freeze-dried coffee is also fine. I once read that there might be a problem with decaf coffee, but then I read that maybe there is not a problem, so I'm not sure. But yeah. What about a milk frother? What is?
Rav, it's Karen Itzkwitz. I'm asking, hi. Something that, what's another word for froth people? That like kind of creams the milk. It puts air in it. basically.
Oh
So
yeah, it's maksif. It's like it's with steam.
not the kind I have doesn't work that way. It kind of
Oh,
whips
it's like
it.
a thing that goes around.
Yeah, it whips it. It whips it. Instead of
Yes.
using steam to put air in the milk, it whips it.
Yes, yes. So just clean it well. That's fine because you never put chametz in. Just in case, pour into it hot water from a kumkum directly, and that's fine.
Okay, but what about the piece that actually it's like a mini whipper, kind of a mini whisk that sits inside the
like on a magnet? Is it on top?
Exactly.
Yeah. So just clean it well, and if you want, you could dip that in hot water, or like to kosher it, or you could just leave it in there when you pour and pour hot water from a kettle into the thing, fill it to the top and pour it out after it's clean. Yes, you clean it first, so that's fine.
So 2 other questions. Also, the plastic top that covers it when it's being whipped, it's also made of plastic.
So that you should that just in case mag'ilit, put it in hot boiling water.
Boiling water. Okay, through the area, or I could do that myself in a.
No, you can do it yourself in any pot. It doesn't need to be a chametz pot.
Okay, so it doesn't. So one last question: it doesn't matter that all of these pieces, especially the plastic pieces, were cleaned with like a chametz.
Doesn't matter because they were done with soap, and that's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And one last question on another related issue. Drinking, whatever, a water bar. Does that need anything special?
No, you just clean it and it's fine. The hot water tap, maybe pour some hot water over it just in case.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Like from the outside.
Question about tea.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Question about tea bags. Plain PG tips.
They're fine.
Without a hechsher on it.
Without a hechsher, yes.
Chazbe Hashem. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You've made our day.
Getting back to the coffee, if I use decaf coffee in my coffee maker, can I still use it if I clean it out or
the
not?
Capsules.
Not the capsules. I use ground coffee for an espresso machine.
So the honest answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I'll see. I could ask a friend of mine who knows more about food. I'll try to ask a friend of mine who knows and get back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, thank you very much. And